but I would like to get them recorded because there's one student who said they won't always be able to make the meetings. And then also I'd like to just, have them for your guys as an extra resource in case you need to review anything or you had to step out for a second, missed anything. So I'd like to get them recorded and then just put them up on YouTube for our class to have access to as we go through the quarter.
Cool.
Great.
All right, so we'll get started here in just a sec. I think this is almost everyone. It looks like we got 14 or 15 people in class this quarter, so that'll be a good group, not too big, not too small, going forward. All right, so just to start, did you guys all get that message I sent yesterday about checking out the Wacom tablets?
Yeah.
Did that
Yeah.
make?
Yes.
Do you guys start that process?
Yeah.
For those that'll need it.
I have a drawing tablet already.
Okay, good. Yeah, so if you have one, here's mine. This is what I use. It's not very big. I think this is about what the ones will look like that you guys get sent from the school.
Yeah, I think the ones from the school actually don't have a screen. Because I think we used them in digital design.
Yeah, no, this one doesn't have a screen.
Oh, okay.
It may just kind of look like that with the light on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is pretty similar to the one we have. But yeah, so if you guys have used them already before, that's good that if you have a little experience with them. I know the animation class uses them a little bit. Some other classes use it like photography and stuff as well. So hopefully we can get these to you soon as hopefully by next week. Do you guys know Elizabeth, the lab tech?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, she has so she's the one in charge of like getting your guys' address and sending these all out to you. So hopefully they can get to you guys by next week. So the sooner you can get her your information and pay that $30. Did anyone call the cashier's office yet and pay that $30? Did that go okay, Emma? Was that smooth? Okay.
Yeah, I just made sure I had my student number, and they were super chill. They knew what we were doing.
Okay, good, nice. That's what it seemed like. So, yeah, hopefully those get to you guys soon. So this week and until you guys get those tablets, we'll just kind of start with some stuff that we won't need actual digital tools for, some thumbnail sketching, shot selection, storytelling, stuff like that. And then once you guys get your tablets, we'll hop into like the technology side of it as well. But have people gotten Photoshop downloaded on their computers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Not yet.
Not yet. So get that after class or whatever, just to make sure that it's all compatible. Oh yeah, let me open the chat there. That's all compatible and it works with your computer. I know there, last quarter, I had a handful of students that just had trouble getting like Illustrator running on their computer when I was teaching Art 109. So hopefully that all goes smoothly as possible. But if you have any issues with it, let me know. I can do what I can to help you get it installed and things like that. Any other things? Yeah. So yeah, we'll get going here. So just kind of general overview of the class. There will be 3 assignments. I think I have the due dates up there already on Canvas. I'll go double check those. Things will kind of shift as we go through the class, just kind of how I see. I've taught this class once before last summer, but obviously not online. So due dates may shift around and things like that. Just kind of see how it goes as how we figure out this online version of the class and things like that. Just so you know, if you guys want to write this down, the week of the 21st to the 23rd, we won't have Zoom meetings that week. I have to go out of town for a funeral that week. So I will just do, I think, just YouTube versions of the class for that week. So just so you know, whatever our topic is that week, I'll just do an online version of the lecture. So that would be the 21st and 23rd. Okay.
Can you please repeat the week? Sorry.
Yeah, it's July. Our normal class would be on the 21st and the 23rd. July 21st and 23rd, but there won't be any class that week. I'll have some videos prepared ahead of time that you guys can watch on your own. So yeah, so there'll be 3 projects to do. It'll all be centered around storytelling, shot selection, The first two will be kind of creating a story from your own life. So you can start to think about that. And then the final project, there will be some options for what you can do for that. So some people, you can come up with your own story for it. It'll be creating one like final good full color illustration. You can do it as a comic page, or you can do it as a single large illustration. If you have a story you've been working on and you want to work on yourself, you can do that for the final. If you want to continue to adapt our first project that we're going to start this week, you can continue to work on that for the final. Or you can choose a different story and adapt like a fairy tale or a novel or some other sort of written text. Who here, did anyone take Art 109 with me? I know Olivia.
I did in the fall.
Yeah, Jessica did. So kind of that final project will kind of be similar to what we're doing, but obviously we'll add a lot more stuff to it, add color to it, learn it doing it in Photoshop. But all our projects are going to be our goal around telling stories visually. So how do you visually tell a story? So that will be our goal with pretty much every project. And we'll learn a bunch of different ways to do that and techniques to do that, and hopefully adapting. So we'll do some single illustrations. We'll start out, we'll do some sequential illustrations. Our first project is going to be storyboards. And then we'll do some comic books, and we'll do some single panel illustrations. And then we'll use story or color to help tell the story as well. We'll learn some different drawing techniques, some basics of like figure drawing, some basics of perspective, and tying that all together with the digital tools. So has anyone ever written their own stories or anything like that?
I kind of have.
Yeah, what sort of stories, Raiden?
Well, it was one kind of like a while ago, but I had this pet quail that I wrote. It was kind of silly, but I wrote a story about him, so that's like the whole thing though.
That's awesome.
I've written a couple, but most of them are like either slice of life or like supernatural stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. So that's good. Olivia, you've written some comics and stuff before, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I've been writing my own so far. It's like kind of like science, fantasy kind of combination.
Okay, awesome. So if any of you guys have stories you've already written, you can use those for the projects. Just kind of start thinking about what you may want to illustrate for those projects coming up. I'll give you a prompt for the first one, so that one will kind of just use to kind of just practice your storytelling and see what you can come up with. And then we'll learn to visualize that story that you're coming up with. So just kind of start to, think about what you may want to do for the final. If you get any like ideas just as you're going through class or going through other stuff, just kind of just write down ideas in your sketchbook, things like that. I find that the best way to come up with stories is just kind of always have something. Anytime you have an idea, even if it's big, small, corny, silly, whatever it may be, just to write that down, and it may evolve into a different story later on, or just provide you with inspiration when you want to come up with any sort of drawing. And so, Cassandra looks like she's written some fantasy stories together. That's nice if you can write with someone too. I know some of the comics I've written have been with a good friend of mine, and it is helpful to be able to like bounce ideas off of someone else and just collaborate with people on those ideas. Yeah, so just a little about me. For those that don't know me, my name's Andrew. You guys just call me Andrew on emails and stuff. I do a lot of storyboard art, illustrations, and comic books professionally. I work freelance doing that stuff. The main thing I do, making money, is doing storyboards for like advertisements. I've done some for movies. I've done some for like different animation projects. But I really like storyboards because I collaborate with other people, so I'm like helping to bring other people's stories to life and help them to visualize it. And also it's lots of small, quick drawings, and I like doing small, quick drawings because it keeps my attention always on the next drawing. So just draw something, get it done, and then and then draw the next one. And then it's also always about telling that story, not about creating a perfect drawing. So that's something I want you guys to think about as we go through the class. Don't worry about creating a perfect, amazing, flawless drawing. Worry about telling the story. So the goal of a successful drawing, especially for this class, will be, can people tell what it is, and is it telling a story? Not, is it like a cool drawing, okay? Is it a good drawing? So you can draw, I'll show art of a lot of different styles, some that are very simple, to some that are very complicated and very complex. And so we can create art in any sort of range. Braden, I did a small movie, it was called Kicks. It took place in Oakland. And a lot of the live action boards, I was just brought in to do some of the special effects scenes. So when people do live action movies, they'll sometimes storyboard other parts of the movies. It depends on the director and things like that for live action. But oftentimes they'll use it for more complicated scenes or scenes where there will be special effects added in. Is there a question?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I forgot to mention that also my friend is making an animated, or she's trying to make an animated series, and I was helping her, and maybe this class will help with that too.
Oh yeah. Were you helping with some of the art?
Yeah, with the storyboard and backgrounds and stuff.
Perfect. Oh yeah, this will be perfect. So if you want to, you can work on part of that story if you want for final project and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll kind of look and see how oops, there's one more person. How those storyboards really work to then translate. So I use storyboards if I'm going to make a comic, if I'm going to make obviously a commercial or a movie with someone else. But that's just really a good way to get your first ideas down and get them down quickly and make sure your story is being told. So that's going to be what our first project is making a short series of storyboards that way. Okay. All right. So always, as I'm talking or whatever, just feel free to, if questions come up or thoughts come up, just kind of interrupt me or flag me down or type in the chat if you don't have a mic or anything like that, and I'll try and stop and answer those questions as they come up.
Are we, can we use our own art styles, right? We don't have to just stick with just one. Yep.
Yeah, everyone's going to draw differently. Everyone will have different levels of experience. So is anyone in this class not done an art class or not done much drawing on your own? Is anyone really a beginner?
Me.
Okay,
Me.
cool. Okay, cool, good. No, that's totally fine. Don't worry about that if you don't have any experience with it. We'll work on ways to draw, to simplify your drawing, to make it so you can tell the story. Again, not worrying about making that perfect drawing, okay? Who here has drawn, any sorts of artwork for themselves, just in the sketchbook or just kind of sketches on their own?
I have.
Okay, good. And I know, so, and then have other people taken other art classes at Green River, other places, the drawing classes, maybe photography? All right.
I've taken intro to screen printing before.
Okay, do you draw in intro to screen printing?
A little bit, but not a whole lot. It was mostly tracing for the most part.
Okay, and then the technical aspect of actually doing the printing.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I've drawn a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Okay,
The
cool.
only drawing I have to my name is a hat.
Drawing of a hat?
Yeah, it's it was of a friend's costume piece called the Iron Stetson.
Okay, nice. Okay. Well then, that's good. Then I'll work on kind of giving you guys some simplified ways to help with the drawing, and we'll go over just general ideas of kind of how to make that art and how to make it simplistically and kind of make it work for everyone's different skill set and different levels where they're at. All right, so let's go over, let's just start and talk about how to kind of start and approach this storytelling artwork. So going to switch over here to screen share, which I will do for a good chunk of the class here. Just a sec. All right, here. So I got Photoshop open here. Again, this is, make sure you guys get this installed. Have people used Photoshop before?
Once.
Kind of. Yeah,
Once
just like
time.
once.
No.
No, okay. No, that's fine. Everyone's going to be at different spots, I'm sure. So we'll do, I've actually put a few, so a lot of the teaching of the technical things in this class, how to use the different features and different tools in Photoshop. I'll be making a bunch of YouTube videos, so I have the first couple made already. I'll send you guys that link before we leave today, to just show you just the basics of, you know, how to open the program, how to make a document, where the tools are, what the kind of the basic 4 or 5 tools are that we will be using. But Photoshop is just the standard industry kind of illustration program that people use. You know, has anyone taken the photography classes at all? Digital photography at Green River?
I took the beginning one.
Okay. So it's like Photoshop was originally and still is like a photo manipulation program, and that's what it was originally designed for. Was just to draw or to manipulate photos the same way you would in like a darkroom, but doing it digitally. But it kind of evolved, and then people started switching and using it for illustration and drawing and sketching as well. So it can do a lot of stuff, but all the stuff that we'll go over for the most part is kind of how illustrators and artists use it.
Yeah, will we be downloading any brushes or anything, or we're just using the default brushes?
Yeah, we'll start with just the default brushes. Those are good enough for simple sketching, but I will show you guys if you want to download and use extra brushes as well. I have a whole bunch of different ones that I use.
Oh, cool.
So I think I can export and share some of these ones that I, like the most common ones that I use, but I have like so many in here, but I have like hundreds in here, but there's probably 5 or 10 that I like actually use.
Yeah.
Regularly. So it is a lot to sort through, and there's a whole bunch online that you can find.
So is it possible to like create our own brushes too?
It is possible to do that. I've done that for just a few things. Normally I'll just look for other brushes that other people have made, just because I am not very good at it. I made this one that looks like a tree shape.
Wow.
So I can draw trees very quickly and then kind of like layer them up. And if you like turn down the opacity, you can adjust that. So I would use that just for like a background section. If I like have to cover a whole hillside with trees in there, I would use that for it.
Wow.
But I can show you guys how to do that too, if you ever want to do that for yourself.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
Oh yeah, and if there's ever anything that I haven't directly discussed, or there's something you just really wanted to know about in terms of illustration, art, digital techniques, use of Photoshop, just let me know and I can incorporate that into a lesson plan. If I know about it, if I don't know about it, I can help you like do some research and figure out how to learn that, kind of come up with these different things. So if there's anything I'm not going to directly go over, just let me know, and I can adapt that into the lesson plan. All right, so let's just start with the main goal of any sort of storytelling here. And our goal for this class, our main goal is going to be clarity, okay? So anytime someone looks at one of your illustrations, one of your sequence of storyboards, if anyone gets into doing a comic book page, any characters that you design, you always want it to be clear to the viewer. So you always have to imagine, and it's hard to do, looking at your artwork as if you've never seen it before. So when you're working on a piece of art, you will have been working on it for hours, going over all the finer details of it, but you want the artwork you create for someone that just looks at it with a completely pair of fresh eyes to instantly understand what's going on. You want them to know what the scenery is, who the characters are, and the general mood of the illustration, so people can understand it very quickly and very easily. So, because if someone looks at a page that you've drawn, an illustration you've created, and they're confused, they're like, huh, what's going on? Who's this character? Where is this location? What am I supposed to be looking at in here? All those different questions. You don't want anyone to have those questions when they look at your work. You want them to instantly know the character, the location, kind of what's going on, and the general feel. So things that you want to make clear that I just listed: characters, locations, any sort of action that's going on, the overall mood of the scene. So some people took Art 109 with me. Who took Art 109 with me? A handful of people. So we had that mood project, right? Where we did all those different moods, making something have a sense of motion, a sense of calm, a sense of action, making something feel strong, something feel scary. So we'll go over that again for the kind of this class, but we'll incorporate types of shots and color to get that mood as well, okay? So the mood is just the general feel of the scene, of a drawing, the general way, the emotions you want to your viewer to have. So just some common ones: calm, scary, strong, motion. So these are some things that we will be able to, emotional states you'll be able to communicate to the viewer as we work in this, okay? All right. So the biggest thing for clarity, especially when we get to like comics, storyboards, a lot of this is related to animation, related to film as well, is your shot selection. So that is, there's just a whole bunch of different types of shots that you can use to frame a character or to frame a moment in a sequence of images, okay? So we will be telling this as images in an order that add up to tell a story and to tell a set of actions. And we'll start with pretty simple stories for the most part, and then by the time we get to the final, your stories can get more complicated, your characters can get more detailed, more interesting, but we'll start off simple and then get more complicated as we go on. So there are kind of a whole bunch of different types of shots. Today we'll go over a few of the basic ones, and then we'll continue to add some more as we go through the class. But let's just look at the first basic types of shots that we will start with. All right, so this is kind of just a little set of storyboards. So I can send you guys this document here. Do people have access to printers at home or like a print shop nearby that they can print at?
Yeah, I got it.
Cool. So
Yep.
I'll send you guys this document after class if anyone would like to start on their storyboards. But this is just a nice way to have a ordered, your shots all the same size, all the same order. So you'll have shot 1, shot 2, 3, obviously as you go through. And this will be the order of your story, of how it's told. All right, so let's just start off just defining these different types of shots. So the best way to get clarity is to use a wide variety of shots and use an appropriate shot for the specific moment in your story. So every type of moment should have the best way to show that. So let's just look at these different types of shots. All right, so the first shot we'll go over is a wide shot. Wide. So a wide shot is usually And I'm going to be speaking about all these as if framing a person. Okay, so we're going to frame our little character here. So how are we, and usually that will be the subject matter of a lot of these shots, but a lot of them, they don't have to have a person in them, but it's kind of easier to define the shot that way. How does it relate to a person or a character? Because a lot of the times, the character will be that focal point, which is something that was talked a lot about in the 109 class, but we'll continue to kind of keep that idea going forward. So we'll deal with our person as a focal point for all these examples. So wide shot is where your character is very small. So you got a small character, and it allows you to see a lot of the environment, a lot of the background. So here we have some stuff here that's close up, but then we can see hills, a lot of the scenery going on. Clouds, all those nice things. So the wide shot has a nice appeal just because it lets you see that whole environment. It lets you see your character in relation to that environment. You can see how big the character is in relation to different things. You can see how many characters are in the scene, if there's more, if there's less. And it's really just a good way to give a lot of information about the scene, okay? So wide shots are good for a lot of information. It explains a lot to the viewer about what's going on, who's in the scene, where are we, what's the general feeling, what's the general mood of this going on as well. Okay.
So I just have a question.
Yep.
So does only the animation movies use storyboarding like these ones, or like live action movies like such as Endgame might have used something like that too?
Yeah, so a lot of the more special effects and more technical heavy movies, live action movies, will use storyboards for a lot of them. So animation storyboards every single frame very specifically. We'll look at some here towards the end of class for some examples. And then live action, it depends on the movie. Live action will use storyboards as well. But, you know, more special effects, more complicated scenery, fight scenes, action scenes like that will use a lot of storyboards as well. Like Alfred Hitchcock, who did Psycho and The Birds, he famously storyboarded. He was very meticulous with his storyboards because he was kind of a control freak, and he wanted to plan out and control every single shot of the movie before he even started filming, before he got actors. He would storyboard everything very meticulously. So it just depends on the actor and the movie for live action. But animation definitely uses storyboards for every single shot of every single movie. That's a good question. All right, wide shot. So that's the first one. So wide shot, very useful. I really like wide shots. I feel because they explain so much and because they will typically have more clarity in them, I really like those wide shots. Then we'll go to a full. Yeah, Nathan, he was very. I have some Hitchcock storyboards I'll show you guys later today. All right, so full shot here is where you see the full height of a person. Okay, so pretty simple. So if you see more of that person, you see a little bit less of the background. Nathan, where'd you read that?
I can't remember for sure, but I know I saw some stories about the things that he'd done. He once made the actress in the infamous Psycho scene do that take about more than, I want to say, around 50 times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a a very cool scene, and very, I would see how he would want to control every single aspect of that. So yeah, it could drive actors and other people crazy, but he got the movie looking exactly the way he wanted it to look.
Was he like the author of everything, like the whole
I'm
story?
I'm pretty sure he wrote a lot of his films, and even if he didn't, he was involved in the entire creative process. He might have like collaborated with other writers. That's a good question though. I should check that out.
That's kind of what George Lucas was like for Star Wars. He started like driving everybody crazy. He was so ridiculous about everything, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, George Lucas he's a very good storyteller, but as soon as he
Yeah.
touched the dialogue, things started to go wrong.
Yeah, so we all know how that happened with those prequels. All
I
right.
think
So
of Richard Williams and how he spent like 30 years on his one animated film, just trying to get everything right. And then what really sucked is that like the company that was funding it took it away from him.
what movie
Oh,
was that?
that's sad.
That was The Thief and the Cobbler. It's like the best animated movie ever, in my opinion. I don't know.
I've never seen that. I'll have to watch it.
What
It's
was
the
it called?
recobbled
Oh, The
cut.
Thief and the Cobbler. Okay.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up. Cool. Yeah, so yeah, all these creative people have slightly different ways that they work to plan out whatever film or drawing or whatever they're working on. But it all is going to start with some sort of, sketch on the paper to start planning out those shots. And yeah, that's the best way to get your idea on screen. Or for us, it will be a colored illustration will be our end goal. So everyone, whether you're doing animation, film, painting, illustration, you have to start out with some sort of small thumbnail sketch to get that idea across first. And if you can make it work in something this size and very rough, then when you take it to the next steps that it'll work in that way too. But if the storyboard, if the thumbnail isn't working, then no matter how much you do to it, it's not going to work later on down the road. So always make sure that these rough, small sketches are working first. And then later on, you can add more to them, more details, add color, things like that to them later on. And it'll still work because you have a good composition and you're able to tell what's going on in the story. Okay, so the next one after full is medium. So we're just getting a little bit closer and closer to our character here. As you can see now, we see more of the character, but we see less of the background. So depending on what's going on in your story, you will have to choose the appropriate framing here, the appropriate type of shot for whatever is going on in your story. Okay, we'll kind of talk about how to select that. Also, I'll refer to the camera. And that's just referring, as we're drawing, to a imaginary camera. So I might say move the camera a little bit closer, or move the camera up, or move the camera down. And that's just kind of, I like to imagine that there's a literal camera that's helping me take these little snapshots of these different framings that we have going in each one of these different types of shots. All right, medium, and then we go to the close-up. Close-up, that's abbreviated as CU. You may see that some places. Okay. And then the last one. So obviously, as you can see here, we are zooming in. So that's another term. You guys are probably familiar with that term, but just zooming in and zooming out of that focal point and of the character. And the next one is extreme close-up. There's the abbreviation, extreme close-up. All right, so these are kind of the basic, 5 that are good to start out with. I think next class I'll add in a few different ones here, but these are kind of the basic ones. So basically, as you are telling a story, you want to try and use all of these shots. So you don't want to use just mediums. You don't want to use just close-ups. Think about, as you're telling that story, about the camera slowly moving in and out as the scene goes on, okay? So with these, they all have kind of different appropriate meanings with them. So the further along you go and the closer you get, the intensity goes up. Okay, so that's kind of just the general emotional intensity of the scene. So if you want to show that someone is just walking around the start of their day, nothing's really happened, that's when you would probably want to use a wide shot. So you just see them walking around, nothing's really happening. But then all of a sudden they get hit on the head with a hammer, falls and hits them on the head. So maybe you show that in a medium shot. So you can see the thing falling down, you can see where it hits them. And then you want to go in after that, they're super angry. So then you want to go to that extreme close-up. And you can see how angry they are because we're in that extreme close-up, okay? So different moments of the story should require the type of shot that matches best with the emotion and the moment of that story, okay? And the best way to do that is just switch it up as you go along and as you go through that story, okay? So that is going to be the best way to tell that in a clear way. So just think, the type of shot should match what's going on in the story. And the more we do this, the more we practice and we look at different examples, you'll kind of start to get a feel for what emotion. So if you want to show like a tender moment between two characters in love, probably is a nice, medium shot here. Because you can see their faces, you can see them start to embrace, but if you saw them really small, you might not be able to tell as much about the characters, but that may be a time where you want to explain more about where the characters are, what the characters are doing, things like that in a wide shot. So just thinking about those different moments. So maybe you start with the wide shot and then zoom in to the medium shot as the emotion kind of rises. Did you have a question, Patricia?
No, I didn't.
Wait, okay. All right. So those are the basics. We'll introduce some more next class, but that will be enough to get us started. And then the thing that you always want to start every scene with. This is kind of, so some of this kind of becomes a little bit like a formula, something that you can use over and over, but then you figure out how to be creative within the formula. So the formula, has anyone ever heard of an establishing shot? Has anyone heard of establishing shot? So what's an establishing shot, Patricia?
An establishing shot is like a big, long, usually it's like a pan over like the environment of like the the place you'll be like having the thing. I don't know.
That's right. So
Like had the words in my head.
it's usually going to be a wide shot.
You can make a drinking game out of watching The Room with these.
Where every time they go to an establishing shot.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That could be
They
a
do
good
it
one.
about
Like
3
you'd be
times.
like in the hospital in 3 minutes. That's not a good game.
They use so many establishing shots.
In what?
They use so many establishing shots.
Yes. So establishing shot is going to be a really good way to get that clarity. Okay. So it's usually going to be a wide shot. It's usually going to show the character, not always. And it will show the location. And it should give an idea of the general mood of the scene. Is this going to be a scary scene? Is this going to be a happy scene? Is this going to be the calm right before the action, whatever it may be? So every time you start a scene, you want to start with that establishing shot. So, you know, maybe it is your character and they are walking on a downtown street. So you see all these buildings here, you see cars, other people, street lights. So this would be a good establishing shot. I see my character, I see the character walking, and I see that environment that they're living in, or that they're that the scene is going to take place in. So that was always going to give you or give your viewer an idea of what is going to be happening in this scene. So this is a way to not confuse your viewer, to increase the clarity. So they say, okay, we got one character. What are they doing? They're walking. Where are they walking? They're walking through a downtown city street. And that gives your viewer a lot of information. So then you see your character here. I just like to give these characters a hat, because even when they're very small, you can see that hat. And then when you go to your next shot here, maybe you want to go to a medium. And we see that character with that hat. And then you see a little bit behind the character. Maybe you just see a few windows or a little bit of things on the side of the street. But now we know what this stuff is. If I just started with this one here and we got rid of that, I'd say, okay, that's a guy, but where is he? I see some windows behind him, but I can't really tell. But when you start with this shot here, now we know. And it will actually save you time later on, so you don't need to draw as much background in subsequent shots if you do a really good job with your establishing shot. Okay. And as a general kind of rule of thumb, every 5 to 10 shots, you should go back to a wide shot. So maybe you go, you know, wide shot, medium, maybe a full shot, and we go to a close-up, and we go back to a full, but then maybe he walks into a door, and then you want to go back to another establishing shot when he walks into this building. So then we have, you know, maybe there's a counter here and he's going up to talk to someone at the front of the store. So anytime something changes in the scene, they go to a new location, a new character comes in, or just every so often, it's good to go back to that wide shot and back to an establishing shot. That just makes sure your viewer isn't getting confused. If you're all close-ups, you're going to have no idea where these characters are, what actions they're doing, things like that. So you want to just mix that up. And again, just think about that camera going in and out. So it starts out, comes in, the characters talk, they have emotions, and then the camera can come back out again as they start to do a different action or they go to a different location. All right, any questions, comments, thoughts about that? All right. Okay, so let's look here at a very good comic. Has anyone ever read Batman Year One? Comic by Frank Miller. All right, so this is a really good comic. Anyone has a chance to check it out? It was made in the 80s, and it was kind of the modern retelling of Batman's origin story. So that's what the movie Batman Begins was based off of a lot. So it's kind of just that retelling of his origins, but really nice. The artist is David Mazzucchelli, is one of my favorite artists here. So let's just look at this sequence and tell what sort of information we can get from this very short sequence. Okay. So here we are. This is the first page of the comic book. So here's this first establishing shot. So what sort of information do we get from that first shot in the comic? What does that tell us?
It's Gotham City.
It's Gotham City, yep.
A train going somewhere, like in the city. I mean, I don't know what specifically it's called, but
Yeah, so we're going to be on a train. We're going towards Gotham City.
Construction. It
Yeah,
looks like.
yeah, kind of industrial construction feel. Does this feel like a very happy-go-lucky train?
depressing almost.
Yeah, kind of, you get all that industrial feel to it, kind of depressing. Not the most like bright, exciting colors, things like that. So that's just kind of establishing the exterior of where we're going to meet our characters and where these first simple actions are going to go on. So it starts with a wide shot here of the train, and then goes down here, and we're into an interior. And this is kind of a full to medium shot. So we have our main character right here, Jim Gordon, the cop. So what information do we get from this second panel? How does this train feel inside there?
I just find it interesting that the characters that are the main are colored and then the rest are like shadows.
Yep, so that's a good way to bring attention to that one character. So all the other characters are colored more simply, just with kind of just basically one monochromatic color here. And then Jim Gordon, our focal point, is in more full colors.
Everyone's kind of doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, lots of people. Everyone's doing something different. We got the mom feeding the baby. Everyone moving about. Pretty crowded. And he's looking at his watch. So that's kind of something that will, you want to see that. And obviously this is more of a full shot, so you can see that action of him looking at his watch. And then we move to the close-up. So what do we learn about Jim Gordon when we go to the close-up? What's his emotional state like?
He's thinking, but it's like he's almost like impending doom or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he looks kind of stressed out.
Yeah.
Something's happening. He's definitely not happy, in a good mood. Yeah. So just those three very simple panels kind of visually lay out and introduce us to this character. We start out with the wide shot, go into this crowded train. He's looking nervous, looking at his watch, and then we get to see his facial expression. So the emotional intensity is ramping up with each one of those panels. And then we get to kind of really see his emotional state of that nervous, worried, stressed out kind of look as he's in this overcrowded train down on the ground. And then this contrast where we meet Bruce Wayne. So then they do the establishing shot of the private airplane, and then we get the shot of Bruce Wayne through the window of that. So it's kind of introducing two of those main characters there. And he looks much more calm, much more worry-free. He's in the air, and Jim Gordon's down in the city there. So let's look at this next page here. So let's go to this first. So notice then they come back to another establishing shot, so another wide shot, where we can see a lot of these people in here. Again, continuing that busy train station. So then what happens here? So we see Jim Gordon, and we see this new character over here. So they're helping to direct our eyes to those characters by both the word balloons obviously help because it's a comic, but also that color again. So he's that blue color against kind of all this reddish background will help him stand out. And then we see the meeting of these two characters. So what happens between this first panel and that second panel there? What sort of actions and emotions are going on?
Kind of like old friend kind of thing, assurance in a way. I don't know, something like that.
So he kind of comes in and shoves this old guy out of the way right
Yeah.
here. So that's actually, we're kind of introducing that this guy is kind of a jerk here. And then
Yeah.
then he puts his arm on his shoulder and he's kind of being buddy, but then he's a little unsure of it, looking down at his hand. But it starts to just kind of establish the relationship that will take place for the rest of the story, where those two characters kind of butt heads. Jim Gordon's supposed to be the good cop, and he's kind of the dirty cop there, but it's just kind of a start of the interaction of those two characters. But a lot of this is just, we can kind of get a sense for all of this just even without the dialogue. So that's a good test as you're working just with your pictures, is that the picture should explain what's going on in the story and kind of the emotional state, and any sort of words should just supplement and reinforce. So you shouldn't have to rely on the words to tell the story. The images should be able to do that on their own. And then the words can kind of offer in other stuff, different information, different understanding, but it should all be clear enough just with the pictures. All right, let me pull up just some examples of some different storyboards. Actually, this one too. Here's just another example of 3 different drawings of a train. So this is using 3 different types of shots. So we got a wide shot of the train, a full shot of the train, and then an extreme close-up down of the wheels. So this just shows you how different those different types of shots can impact the viewer. So the first one is obviously less intense. It's much more calm, that wide shot. And then we go to a full shot. That's starting to feel a little bit more imposing. You kind of feel the strength and power of the train there. And then we go to this extreme close-up, and that's much more intense. You can really feel the motion. You can almost feel those wheels moving there. So depending on what you want to say about this train for your story, is depending on that should help you choose what type of shot to use, because they're all going to have very different feelings about them just by the type of framing there. All right, just here's a couple of storyboards here. So you can see these are all loose and rough, but they go between starting with a wider shot here, going to a close-up, and going through all these different types of framings, going between wides, and then we're ending with some full shots here on the bottom. But that camera's just moving in and out as we go through the different aspects of this story here. Let's see if I got that. So this one's Little Mermaid. You guys seen Little Mermaid recently? Or remember it? So yeah, just those, and look how rough they are. A lot of these are just scribbles, but it's enough to tell what the characters are and what they're doing. So he's not worried about making these perfect at this point. That comes later on when the animation gets finished, but it's enough to give an idea of the motion of the characters, the type of framing that they want to use, and things like that. Here's one from the Peter Pan movie at Disney. So when they're doing this in animation, they'll cut all these frames out and put them up on a wall and rearrange them and figure out the best order for these as the people are working.
Do they still do that, or now do they have a digital way of doing that?
I think they just draw it digitally, so it'll be
Almost.
drawn on Photoshop or on a different illustration program, but they still will sketch everything out, even if it's sketched digitally, before any sort of 3D rendering or any voice acting is done. Oh, here's one from live action. So here's one from Jurassic Park. So here's one of the action scenes from there. With the raptor popping his head up through there. These are a little bit more detailed too, so this isn't quite as loose as some of those other ones. And here is, oh, here's the Psycho scene. So these are, I think Hitchcock drew a lot of his own boards too. So there's that scene we were just talking about. And this whole scene was so cool because they never showed any blood. They never showed the knife going into the woman. It's all kind of, the mind of the viewer kind of connects the dots there. Then here's a couple of other of his from the birds, just so you can see how he drew some of those. All right, so does that give you guys an idea of kind of the basics of that? Any questions on any of that? All right, yeah.
Quick, we're doing ours, we're printing them out and doing them with a traditional media, right?
Yep.
Okay.
If you have your own tablet and you want to start sketching digitally, you can do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you would like to draw how I was doing this here, you could feel free to do that. If you're comfortable and you have a tablet already, if obviously a lot of people will still be waiting on your tablets, you can still do this all on paper. So you can.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'll send this out to you guys after class. So the first assignment, look at it on Canvas, but the general idea is to make a story that has happened from your life, okay? And you are going to translate that to a story sequence of 30 storyboards, I believe, okay? So it can be anything from your life, and I definitely, it can just kind of be started off as something that happened as a true story, and then you can change things, add in different things, you can change the characters, but I think that is just a good way to kind of start it as a restriction of something is your real life. So it can be something that actually happened to you, or you can do like change yourself to a superhero in one scene, or you can change it to like sci-fi if you wanted, or you know, whatever it may be. I've done this story a couple times. I'll show you some examples of my artwork. One I did, my dog is a rescue dog, so I wanted to tell his story about how he, where he was born and what happened to him. So I did a short little sequence about the dog being rescued from the from an alleyway and stuff like that. So kind of showing my dog's origin story. I've done one where it was me as a little kid trying to get cookies down off the top shelf, but then I made us into superheroes. So kind of created an action scene of it that way. So just think about that, and before next class, try and just write a very short paragraph description of what story you would like to do, okay? So I think, so it's helpful to write it out as words first, very simple. It shouldn't be more than 2 paragraphs long. And then you'll take those words and translate those into images. So before next class, think about that story and try and write a very short paragraph or 2 version of what story you would like to illustrate, okay? And these directions are on Canvas, so you can go and look at that first assignment. Has anyone seen it yet? I'm pretty sure it's published.
Yeah, I think all 3 of them are.
Okay, good. So yeah, all those same directions are on there. So let me know if you guys have any questions after looking at that or working on it before next class, okay? And then next class, we'll go over some a few more shots, and I think I'll try to start with just some simple drawing basics for people that will just need a little bit of help and ideas for sketching quickly and sketching kind of small, as in sketching for storyboards and things like that.
And next class is Thursday, right?
Yes, next class is Thursday. Yeah, yeah, same time. Eventually our Thursday classes I'll just kind of introduce and send you guys some of the YouTube videos to use for the technical side of things. But since everyone's still waiting on their tablets, we'll just go over some more illustration stuff and shot select.
And the first assignment is due on the 9th, right?
Yes, I believe that due date is correct for the first one. The other 3 may change a little bit as we get into the class a little bit more. And yeah, and I'll send you guys that little page I have with the 9 storyboards on there. If you want to print it out and draw right on there, you can do that. Or if anyone's ready to sketch digitally, you can sketch on there on Photoshop if you have your own tablet already. All right, guys, so that'll be it. Looking forward to this quarter. If anyone has any questions, I'll leave this open for a sec before I shut it down, but that will be it for today.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Yep, see you guys.